In class 2, we're going to get into more of the starting up the mix, right? And so from here, what we're going to do is get into like organizing the tracks, right? So when you see here, I have my tracks color coded. I set up the 3-tier mix structure. So what I have is a master fader. I kind of like to start it on the left. A lot of people like to put it all the way over to the right. It doesn't really matter, whatever you feel most comfortable with. And I put mix stems. And then I have my effects processing next to my individual instruments. So I put all my drums and percussion together. I always like to put my bass next to the kick drum because it occupies like the low frequencies together. All your acoustic, guitars, right? So we got all my guitars. They're all green, and I can put them to variations of colors of green. Like maybe the electric guitars are darker green, and whatever. You can kind of color code it whatever way you like. Keyboards in blue, that type of thing. Lead vocal, I always put red. You could put that whatever. Background vocals, orange. And that type of thing, right? And all the blue things are effects. Now, the way that I organize this is like these are audio tracks, these are effects returns, the light blue tracks. And again, the colors you can decide to make them whatever you want. The basic mix flow though is really important. So when I'm looking at the mix flow of a session, there are 3 stages of it. We have individual tracks. So hold on, let me just kind of get here to all right, thanks. So I have my individual tracks, and here I process my individual sounds. So let's just say these are drums. And then for the drums, I feed them into effects. And so maybe these are a couple of effects channels for reverb and whatever. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to bus all of these guys, right? So this is tier 1, right, in the 3-tier mix structure. This is tier 1. And in tier 1, I have individual processing with their effects. And all of these channels, along with their effects that are only used by the drums and percussion, right? Nothing else. They get bussed into another channel, and that's tier 2, and that is the stem level. So here at the stem level, what I have is a stereo mix of all my drums, percussion with effects. And then here, what did I use? I used the color green. I have my guitars, right? And my guitar tracks have their individual effects, right, which are in, the light blue, if we kind of follow that. And those guys get bussed in, right, to the next stem, right, which is the guitar stem, right? And maybe all the keyboards go in there as well. So I have drums, I have music, I have lead vocal with effects, I have background vocals with effects. Maybe if I have certain other instruments that, maybe for whatever reason I want to isolate the guitars from the keyboards, right? So I have a guitar stem because maybe they serve just really different functions in the mix, and they'll have keys. Or maybe if I have a horn section, I want them into a separate thing. But the effects that go along with the drums never get used by the keyboards. I could use the same effect, I just duplicate the settings and put it into the same stem with the keys or with the guitars. So each has its own grouping. And this allows me to process the whole group of drums, compress the whole group of drums with the effects, and the whole group of guitars with their effects, and the whole group of keyboards with their effects, and lead vocals with their effects. And then all of this gets routed off into the master fader, right? And so the master fader, we'll just put a little MF here. You can make that whatever you want. The master fader here, then I can process this as a stereo mix. So the light blue, so Elton, the question there is the light blue, that would be the effects processing, right? So when you look back at my Pro Tools session here, the light blue tracks are the effects. So these are the drums, and these are the drum effects. The green tracks are the guitars, and the light blue is the guitar effects, right? Again, you could use whatever colors that you want, right, and do it, but that's what it is, or that's the basic idea. So here on my drawing here, those are drums in dark blue, light blue are effects, guitars in green, etc. They go into the stems here. The stems go all mixed together into the master fader. So I have one level of processing, second level of processing at the stem level, third level of processing that pulls the whole mix together. These 2 stages I save for the end. I want to work as hard as I can to get all the individual sounds exactly the way I want. Then I go to the stem level, and then everything I do just adds, like, it just takes everything like a big lens and you twist it into focus, and everything just really leaps out of the speaker, right? And it also makes it easy because when you go to create different variations of mixes, you want an a cappella vocal, right? You mute the other tracks except for the vocals, and then you have all the effects built in. You want a per cappella mix, right? Only percussion and drums. You mute the other tracks on the stem. So you just like mute the four faders, and all the effects are right there. When the instruments are sharing effects, then you have to sit there and go through solo buttons. It's so easy to miss something, right? So this makes it really simple, right? This whole process. Simple to do variations of mixes, vocal up versions, vocal down versions, TV mixes, which is a whole mix without lead vocal, a cappella mixes, and you can go on and on and on. And this actually makes it easier for live performances as well, right? So when you work on the live performance end, you have all these stems, and that makes it very easy to isolate and pull out instruments, right? So we go through this process. We set up our mixed signal flow, and we'll talk about that, how you use sends, what effects that you put on inserts, as opposed to effects that you feed from a send, right? And that's like a different level of working with things. And we go through our levels and panning, right? So when we go through the mix, we work with our basic levels, we set our panning, and we kind of get it to feel more or less good, right? What instruments complement each other? How do I pan them? You make decisions about where you want to move things. I want to feature the acoustic guitars. It's like, no, I want the acoustic guitars to be in back, and I want to feature the piano, right? And you play with the levels and the pan position, and you find something that stages the song well, right? That gives you like a good, maybe you want the mix to kind of really start mono-ish and small in the middle and get bigger and wider as it goes along. So you kind of follow the production and work with the tracks and organize them in such a way that your sounds structure out that way. So maybe if early on it's like a vocal with an acoustic guitar that's panned in the center, and then a keyboard pops in, so you pan the keyboard so it spreads the signal a little bit, but not hard left and right. And then when you get to the chorus section, the big heavy guitars come in and you spread those really wide. So now you get this sideways movement. The mix is literally getting wider as it goes along, and that helps to add excitement, right? And these are things that you can plot and plan out, right, as you're working through the different levels of the mix, right? So those are the things where you're assessing sounds. You find noises, bad edits, bad crossfades, fade things out. You make some adjustments. This vocal phrase is out of tune. Let's pitch correct that. And you fix basic problems. Maybe the bass timing of a certain note is out of line. You want to line that up, right? Those are the basic things that we're getting to. So that's part of the second class, is getting into those basic things, getting everything so that the fundamental approach is basically set up and in place right before you start the next level of mixing. And so let's move on to class 3.